Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey there, thanks for joining us on our first edition of the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we have joining us comedian Cheri Hardman. Cheri, you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Andy.
Hey, Cheri, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's been a weird day, but I'm here and I'm happy, so that's what matters, right?
Right. Those days that are weird kind of make it a little more fun, too, hopefully.
Yeah,
I don't know.
well,
It's fun and
about
weird
that.
in a good way.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. So Cheri is a local comedian here in the Seattle area, and you can find Cheri. Cheri, correct me if I mess any of this up, but Cheri's website is cherihardman.com, and it's CHERIHARDMAN for Cheri Hardman. And you can also find her on
correct?
Facebook with the same name. And also on Instagram and Twitter as Cheri So CHERIMMHMM.
That is correct. Good job, Andy.
All right. Well, thank you. What all do you have going on all those different sites for people to see?
Well, right now I've started like a new web series called Heavy Petting with Cheri Hardman. And every Thursday we release a new episode. So just this morning one came out. And what it is people come and they bring their pets. And we talk a little bit about their pet. And then we talk a little bit about heavy petting of the human variety. So it's a little bit of both. And it's been really fun. We're on the second one right now. And today's episode has Samuel Jesse Stevens in it and his lovely dog. And next week we're going to have a chicken. So
awesome. I saw last week's episode. I haven't seen this morning's yet, but it's an interesting concept to mix the pets with the human petting.
Well,
and
I thought everybody loves a cute animal.
Right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to say, on your first episode, you had some censored material. Is that, can we look forward to that for today's, too?
I think there is a little bit that I had to bleep out. I want it to be playfully sexy, but not too graphic. So you can, I maybe not listen to it at work, but, we don't want to go all the way there. We only want to go part of the way there. So
just a little teaser.
Right.
So
there we go.
More
That's how we
the
like
foreplay is in the episode.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And you said you have a chicken next week.
Next week we do. Next week we have Leah Arnold, and she's bringing her chicken. Most of the people that we have come on are local comedians. But like the following week, it's just one of my friends, and we're going to have just a variety of people. But they're brand new, and I'm just learning how to do this. So they're just going to keep getting better and better as I get better and better at this. So I'm excited to see how it goes, and I love to have people watch.
Yeah, so where can we find these episodes?
You can find it either on my Facebook page, Cheri Hardman, or you can find it on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube as Cheri Hardman, and you can see them on there too. Okay. So I double dip them, so you can find it anywhere.
Nice. Okay, and for listeners too, if you didn't catch the spellings, the Cheri's pages are also listed in the description of this episode, so you can click there to get to any of her information. What gave you the idea for heavy petting?
Well, part of it's because I kind of get a little bit of flack about being more of a dirty comedian that kind of usually has adult, material. I tend to focus on that kind of stuff. That's what I think is funny, and that's what I talk about. So I wanted to do something that was kind of naughty, as in heavy petting. But I thought, well, people always love to watch animal videos. So if we started off the episode with an animal, that might bring in somebody that wouldn't tune in if it was just flirtatiously sexual material. So we got the best of both worlds. Yeah.
Nice. And I love the play on words in your title. That's awesome, creative.
Well, thanks. I thought it was fun.
And you also are an animal lover yourself, are you not?
I do. I have 2 dogs and 3 cats. So
nice. So will we get to see your pets featured in some of the episodes?
We're trying to keep my pets out of the episodes right now because
are you trying to do this?
You have met my dog Nipsey. You've met my dog Nipsey. He's not very well behaved yet, so we're working on that before we expose.
Maybe if he's a little more aggressive. Maybe if you have a BDSM episode, where your dog is into punishment. What's the safe word for your dog? Treats.
Woof. I don't know.
Yeah. So Cheri, one of the things I put everybody on the spot with, you touched on your comedy is a little more adult. How long have you been doing comedy?
Just past my 3-year birthday. So 3 years.
And your website says that you are, how does it word it, the oldest new face in comedy? Or the
I'm 57. Well, I didn't start doing comedy till I was 54, and that's a pretty late start. So I'm the oldest new face. Yeah. And the newest old face. I don't know.
And how has that affected it? You know, we never know where things will go based on when we start things, but how do you feel that has impacted what you're able to do with comedy?
I think it somewhat limits me because most comedians are young and they like to do shows with their friends. So, you know, if they want to hang out with somebody or take somebody on the road with them, they're going to want to take someone that's probably in their own demographic, their own age range. And sometimes I feel like maybe they don't want to hang out with an old lady. I also feel that it kind of limits me just because I'm older and I have arthritis in my knees. Sometimes there are some venues that are hard for me to get into. But other than that, I think having just a life experience kind of gives me maybe a more well-rounded view of what audiences think is funny because, I've been young and I've also been older. So mature experience. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. And it's interesting because that is one thing that we've learned in comedy is how much comedy just comes from our own experiences and that idea that whatever tragedy we have, if you give it enough time, it becomes something we can laugh about. So it seems being older, you'd have more to bring to the table to talk about.
Well, you would think so, right? I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. You know, like I say, I made it through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, being single and sexually active without catching an STD. I mean, that's something to talk about. I mean, well, let me clarify that. Without an STD that you can't get rid of. Yeah, so.
Right, important distinction.
Yeah. So, I've been around the block a few times.
Right, which gives you plenty of material. And I know you mentioned earlier a lot of your topic is joking about sexual experiences, which to me that's such a great thing to joke about because it's that awkward thing that no one wants to talk about. But we all do it, hopefully.
Yeah. Or we all try to do it anyway.
Wants to do it, right? Yeah. But
I hope
but it
so,
is
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it is that thing that it's kind of it's been taboo to talk about. I don't think it is as much as it used to be, but it's still, depending on what you say, it's like people are afraid to talk about the reality of a situation being awkward, and that's okay.
Right. I have the experience of I didn't get married until I was 49 years old. So I was a single woman all my life, and now all of a sudden I'm married, and sometimes I'm not exactly sure what to do with that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm getting older, and I have a husband, and I have a joke about that. The only thing I forget when I'm drinking is that I'm married, and
Right.
and my husband is kind of a homebody. He's like the exact opposite of me. So like where I'm daring and outgoing and all this stuff, he just wants everything to be the same, and he wants to be at home where it's safe. So there's a lot. Well, anytime you get married, there's a lot of, as you know, a lot of material that you can get from that for sure.
Right. Yeah, and then
with two people
and
that
you
are
have
opposite,
to give it to your husband. Yeah. Yeah, and he's got to get a lot of credit because you talk about a lot of stuff on stage involving him or your personal life, and he's right there at the show laughing along and enjoying it, and really, super supportive in a way that a lot of people wouldn't want to hear or have shared.
That's true, and I will say that he has to approve my jokes. Like we don't have a process or anything, but when I'm writing a joke that I think might hurt his feelings or offend him, I always check. And there's been a couple he said, no, you can't say that,
Yeah.
But sometimes the audiences will feel sorry for him. Like if they can see him, they don't want to laugh at the jokes because they don't want to hurt his feelings. So I've learned that I have to hide him in the back of the room, so that they don't know who he is, and that kind of helps sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, if they see the image of you too.
All my jokes are husband approved, so.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, so it doesn't cause any issues when you get home. That's good. So one thing I want to put you on the spot on is what has been something that you felt awkward about, getting to where you are today, whether it's comedy or just in life?
Well, there are a lot of things I've been awkward about because I'm kind of an awkward person, I feel, but a lot of it was just growing up as a chubby girl. I've never been a skinny person ever. And so I always felt like awkward, like I didn't measure up maybe, or I wasn't good enough, or people didn't think I was pretty, or, just all that kind of stuff that society lays on you for being a person that has some fat on their body. And it affected me a lot. And I was trying to think about this today, like what really helped me overcome that, because I'm a pretty confident big woman. And I get a lot of audience members coming up and saying to me, I love that you're up there and just being confident. And a lot of big women come up to me after the show and thank me. So I tried to see what really changed that for me. And part of it was just there's an organization called NAFA. It's I don't want to say it wrong, but I think it's the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance. And so they had chapters. They have chapters across the country, and they would have dances. And so they had these dances for big people, primarily big women and men who liked big women. And to walk into a room where you're totally accepted for the first time in your life was really empowering. Now, part of it is it was totally different. Like all of a sudden, I was like the hottest babe in the room, instead of, she's got a good personality, So that was really nice. Now, it's kind of unfortunate, as I look back, that it had to take something outside of myself to make me feel better about myself. It was other people's approval that did it. Right, but the thing about that is, though, that I think sometimes you got to find your peeps. That's important, Yeah,
you do.
Wherever it is that you can find acceptance with people, really kind of is helping to make you accept yourself. So that was super important for me.
Well, it's interesting how you say how many women have come up to you after shows and appreciated your confidence on stage. And that's something the first time I saw you on stage, you didn't seem to have any hesitancy about your stage presence. You seemed very confident. You delivered very well. And you joked about, you were hilarious. And it was about stuff that was very personal. And I didn't understand it at the time until I got to know more comedians. But so many comedians and people just going through life actually are very uncomfortable, even though they're presenting themselves very confidently.
Right.
And I wonder how many times, we all feel and like we still have confidence issues, even if, we're presenting ourselves better. But it's okay, because it doesn't have to be that you are always on top of your game, or that you conquered every issue in the world, as long as you're not beating yourself up still.
Right, and that's a good way to look at it, because nobody's 100% perfectly confident all the time. I mean, I don't think anybody is. We all have our self-doubt,
Mhm.
We all have
Now,
those moments, or like. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Have I felt what?
No, have you felt that that having gone through those issues and identifying yourself, when that's come into your comedy now, you tell a lot of jokes about that. How much do you pull from, your past where you didn't feel confident, or is it an outlet now to, get past that?
That's an interesting question. I notice a lot of times, and I don't know if this is even answering the question, but oh well. I notice a lot of times if I do too many fat jokes, or if I do fat jokes about myself, or even just call myself the word fat, I can feel the audience. And as a comedian, you can feel the audience recoiling, or when they're with you, and I can feel their buttholes tighten up sometimes if I even just say that I'm fat. Like they're not comfortable with the word fat. Now, I am comfortable with the word fat, but they're not. So sometimes when I tell jokes about myself that I think are funny and I'm comfortable with, they're like, "Ooh, no, don't say that about yourself." Like they don't like to hear that. And that's interesting. But to me, fat's not, I've always said, fat is not an insult. It's just a descriptor, And so I want to kind of take the stigma out of that word. Like to say I'm fat is not saying something bad about myself. It's just I have a lot of fat. So I forgot what the question was.
It's in the other person's mind. It's in the other person's mind that made it negative. It wasn't anything that you said that made it a negative word.
Right.
And I guess it doesn't. Whatever the question was doesn't matter as much as what you're able to share. You're able to pull from that a lot in comedy. And do you struggle at all with, because I know something that I struggle with in comedy is not having any one thing define me or my identity on stage. And I feel like sometimes I tell too many jokes that are one direction, and I don't want that long term to be how I am. And I think you have a good mix of, you do tell some fat jokes and some sex jokes, but you also tell jokes about things in everyday life and, serial killers, and sometimes you tie it back into the other stuff. At
some point they tell you, or you hear this as a comedian, that you need to find your voice. Like, what is it you're really trying to say here? You're not just up there absentmindedly telling jokes. At some point, in order to become better, you have to find your voice, your point of view, your message, if you have one. I don't know. Maybe you are just up there telling dick jokes. But I decided that what I really want my message to be was empowering for women, period, women of size particularly. So I might get up there and last night I did a string of jokes about how fat I was, but then I also talk about how I want to be a role model for fat little girls. So I want to take the sting out of the fat jokes, because, that's fat person survival instinct number one is you make the fat joke before somebody else can,
Yeah.
We all do that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like, it's that beat them to, if you roast yourself before someone else can, then you've just
it doesn't hurt as much.
taken all the ammo out, right? Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
And it is, it's interesting. I think that comedians sometimes get a bad rap just for being jokesters or, running their mouth on stage a lot of times. But the good comedians, and the majority of the comedians that we know, actually have a real purpose to what they're trying to do on stage. And, really it's about inspiring and making people's day better through humor. But you're right about finding your voice. That's such a critical thing. And I think that's one of the things that in comedy and even in life, we all struggle to figure out, why are we here? What are we about? What's our mark on the world going to be?
Yeah. I would love to know before I died that there was some insecure little chubby girl somewhere that looked at me and thought, oh, well, look at what she's doing it. I'm going to do it too, whatever her it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, you never know who you inspire, and it's really, how it is when someone comes up to you after stage and they connected with your message, and that's why we all do what we do.
Right. Plus, when you have someone that's just doubled over, they're laughing so hard they're about choking on their drink, that's pretty cool too.
That is fun.
Just making somebody laugh that hard, that's good. Good stuff.
Right. Yeah. Don't want to send them to the hospital, but it would be kind of cool to have on your record. Look what I did.
Yeah, I killed a man.
Yeah. So do you have any shows or anything coming up? That I know you just had the Burbank Comedy Festival and some other things going on. Do you have stuff coming up you want to share?
Yeah, let's see. What do I have? I have, like many other people in the Seattle area, I'm doing an audition for the Seattle International Comedy Competition on the 23rd at the Comedy Underground. And then on the 24th of this month, I am hosting for Samuel J. Comroe from America's Got Talent at Tacoma Comedy Club. And then on the 28th, I'll be at Bob's Java Jive. So I've got some stuff coming up the end of the month, and this weekend we're going to do a roast together, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It's always fun to make fun of our comedian friends, isn't it?
Oh, so much fun, yeah.
I've got to work on a few more jokes for that. I think I finally found what I'm going to say, and I need to work through it.
Yeah, I got to work on those jokes too.
Yeah. And how do you find you're busy? You've got, you're a mom. You've got work. How do you find time to write new material?
I always keep a tablet in my purse because usually my writing happens when I'm driving or doing something that I have to. A lot of times I yell at my husband, "Write this down." It's
right.
just like that kind of stuff. But I do try to make a time where I just sit quietly somewhere, and that's really hard to do, and I need to be better disciplined about that. But like I was going down to the river once a week and just sitting there with my notebook and writing, and that's really like one of my favorite ways to do it. But I just find time whenever I can, and my biggest issue is making myself turn off the Facebook and the Netflix and making myself just be disciplined,
Right. Yeah, that is very tough. So I want to circle back to something you said about being awkward and growing up as a bigger girl. Was there a time in your life where you felt like you were finally okay with who you were, where something just clicked?
It was, but it wasn't until I started going to those dances as an adult woman.
To the dances?
Not once did I really feel okay about it as a teenager or a young girl. And I mean, a lot of that was, messages that I got, like, bless my mom's heart, I'm not saying anything bad about her, but she would say stuff like, I'll buy you a bikini if you lose 10 pounds. When I was like 10 years old, right. I was getting those kind of messages. So it was always like, I can never have, I was taught I can never have what I want until I become something else.
So you fit into a certain mold. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to it's a fine line between encouraging the people around us without forgetting the message we could be saying. If we're saying not good enough as you are, but if you do this, I'll reward you here.
Right. And, I always kind of was glad I never had a daughter, because I would have really messed her up probably with all, my internal weight issues. And that's, that's what happened with my mom. She had her own weight issues, and then she brought that to me, and I probably would have passed that on. And, that's kind of what we do as parents. So.
Right. And I know that my own issues, I look at the ways that I parented my kids, and I know that whatever insecurities I had, the way I dealt with them in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
And,
right.
I think we all have something that, I always like to say we're all in the closet about something. You might not be gay and need to come out. Maybe it's something different, but everybody has something that they don't quite feel good about putting in front of everybody. And some people, whatever the issue is, it's more obvious. And unfortunately, weight is something that you walk into a room and everybody knows what your issue is because it's a physical thing they can see.
Right, that's for sure. Right.
An alcoholic or a drug addict walks into a room, they might be able to hide it for a day, or from people who aren't that close to them. You just never know what people's struggles are.
It's very true.
So
yeah. The other thing that I was thinking too was that I was really like I was a late bloomer in a lot of ways, and it's kind of unfortunate that they say youth is wasted on the young. Like, I wish I knew so many more things when I was younger, that it was okay to be me. But
so if you had that room full of little girls that all have weight issues, what would you say to them if today, if you could say something to inspire them or to help them get through those darker hours?
Well, first of all those little boys that are making fun, this is what I would tell them. All those little boys that are making fun of you are doing it because not because there's anything wrong with you, but because they're feeling bad about themselves in some way, and that makes them feel better by making you feel less. So don't let those stupid little boys make you feel bad about yourself. And and I would tell them everybody's good at something. You just got to find your something. And when you find a friend or anyone in your life that supports you, appreciate it, because it's not always available, and you're okay just the way you are. And the last thing I would tell them is don't go on diets, because diets make you fat. There's a lot of biology and science behind that statement, and we won't get into that right now. But if I had never gone on a diet, I know I would not be this fat right now. So,
wow, isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
It's, and there's so many medicines that are the same way, where the more you start taking them, the more you become dependent on them. And then there are just things that happen. And there are times where you need medicine, but it's too bad that we become dependent on a specific mindset of how people should look and act.
Right. And sure, we want to be healthy, and that's the thing. Just be healthy. Just take care of your body and love your body, and be healthy, and you'll be okay. So,
yeah. Oh, that's good. I think that's beautiful. Well, we are winding down here to just a couple seconds left. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with before we go?
Well, I want to thank you for having me on here, and I would like to do a little endorsement for Andy Vargo. Andy, you are one of the people that if I need advice, you always say the right thing, and that's just really, you're a good friend to have. For many reasons. I always know that you will ground me if I'm having a freak out moment, and I love you very much, and I hope you have great success with this. That's really what I wanted to say.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot. And you are a good friend, too, and I'm honored to have you as the first guest for this. It means a lot. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being on. And everybody else, don't forget to look up Cheri. Catch her episode she released today of Heavy Petting. And get out and see her in one of the clubs here. You got plenty of chances this month. And those are posted on your website, correct, Cheri? Your
yes,
event?
I always keep my Yep, I do keep them on there. So
Okay, awesome. And on Facebook, you can follow Cheri, and she'll tell you where she's at too. So, well, thank you so much. It's been a good pleasure talking with you, and we will catch up soon.
All right, thanks, Andy. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.